My name is Leo Pigwater of the Southeast Paranormal Tracking and Investigation Company. Thank you for watching, listening to the audio variety show podcast on YouTube and on YouTube and the podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you have a paranormal experience that you would like to share with us, you can contact me at leoparanormal@aol.com. LEO paranormal@aol.com. Enjoy the show.
Now you're listening to the Audio Variety Show, Episode 4. I went out with the Southeast Paranormal Tracking and Investigation Company this week, and I did not see anything paranormal, but I did get myself creeped out, so I guess it was good for something. And ever since I got back, I've been completely on edge, still creeped out, hair on the back of my neck standing up, checking the windows all the time, utter paranoia, and I can't even tell you why. It was just unnerving being out there. I guess I was expecting something paranormal, and I was standing in the woods at night, so it just, all of it, the whole atmosphere got to me. I've been in the woods at night after I've been hunting. I've camped outside plenty of times, but this was different somehow. So I'm still feeling it. still in a weird mood, but that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and have a good show tonight. We'll go ahead and actually play you the highlights from the what I would consider an unsuccessful but entertaining expedition into the woods. Hey, this is Cam. As you can tell from the background noise, we are driving around. I'm with Leo Pigwater with the Southeast Paranormal Tracking and Investigation Company. He has agreed to take me out on a search for the Eastern Chupacabra, which is apparently a dog-like creature with pointy ears and pointy teeth and gray or tan fur that is often seen crossing the road in the southeastern United States. Yep, this is correct. This is a good description of the Eastern Chupacabra. Hello, audio variety show listeners. I am Leo Pigwater, and it is an honor to be on the show, sharing what we do with everyone listening. So thank you. So just checking in. We're still kind of driving around. That's pretty much all we're doing right now. Haven't seen a whole lot. Saw a few deer. Saw a raccoon at one point. Nothing that seems to be an Eastern Chupacabra. But hey, what's that? What's that? What's that? Right there. Right there. That is a that I do not know. I do not know. Look at the size. It is potentially correct for that to, in fact, be an Eastern Chupacabra. Well, awesome. It went into the woods right there. Right. You're passing it. Right there. Right. Yes. Right. Thank you. Okay, we're backing up now. You seem a little reluctant to actually see the Eastern Chupacabra. No, I am happy to see the Eastern Chupacabra. Only I'm a bit nervous about getting out in the woods with an amateur such as yourself. Yeah, okay, whatever. Let's go. There it is. Where? Right there. 2 hour left. I see it. I see it. I see it. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I'm gonna get closer. I would not recommend getting too close to the Eastern Chupacabra. Yeah, what's the point coming out here if I don't get to see it? While I understand your enthusiasm, I do believe... Oh, dude. It's a coyote. That is often said when seeing the pointy ears and the elongated snout of the Eastern... Dude, no, it's a coyote. I'm looking at it right now. In fact, it's looking at us. It's a coyote. There it goes. Bye, random coyote. Sorry to bother you. Well, it is, as you can see, the Eastern Chupacabra has moved away from our vicinity. So, I guess we are done here. I do feel honored to have experienced the Eastern Chupacabra at this time. Yeah, pretty sure it's a coyote. Okay, we're trying to make our way back to the truck, and as you can probably tell, it got really, really quiet all of a sudden. There's something to our left, and when we move, it moves, and when we stop, you'll hear like one step, sometimes two steps, and it then it stops. And so we don't have that far back to the truck, but I just kind of wanted it on record that something is I don't know, something's over there. We are now on the way back after a successful exhibition to see the Eastern Chupacabra. I want to thank... Yeah, it was totally a coyote. Definitely a coyote. Yeah, so you see what I mean, right? I'm not really sure how much longer I'll stick with these guys. I don't know if my original paranormal problem is even going to be an issue. I mean, if it comes back, we'll see what's up. But as things stand now, I'm not I'm not putting myself through that again. That was cool. Whoa! Sorry, that was a cat. That's embarrassing. So next segment we'll do we're going to talk about my top 10 favorite pinball machines from the years 1978 through 1995. See, that's a separate category because through these doors is another dimension. A dimension of sound where every song you've ever heard was written by the Doors. You've crossed into the bright midnight zone. Home, our times have gone. Here, what now? They're gone. Seasons don't fear the reaper, nor the wind, the sun, or the rain. We can be like they are. Don't fear the reaper. We'll be able to fly I'm your backdoor man. Valentine is done here, but now they're gone. Romeo and Juliet together in eternity. 40,000 men and women every day. 40,000 men, women every day. We can be like they are. Baby, I'm your man. Two is one. Here, but now they're gone. Came the last night of sadness, clear she couldn't go on. We can be like they are. And then she ran away to him. Well, she had taken his hand. Don't fear the reaper. Or we can just go through that again. Okay. Well, since we're back to the program, let's stick with the theme of really weird paranormal stuff. And Leo actually sent me a message that he got describing not really a paranormal experience in this case, but it's actually near to me, so I'm going to read this. It says, back when I was in high school, we liked to drive around a lot, just doing the back roads like teenagers do. And one of our favorite roads is Nash Road in Columbus, Mississippi, which is commonly known as Three-Legged Lady Road, based on some legend where a lady with 3 legs will chase your car if you're on the road. Most variations involve knocking on a church door, but that church was demolished in a storm in the early 2000s. And I've heard variations where you have to cross a bridge to get away from her, but I'm not sure that there actually is a bridge on or near Three-Legged Lady Road. So either we're all doomed or somebody made that up out of thin air. But one night, it was just me and a friend just riding Three-Legged Lady Road for fun. We never really saw a lot of weird things on Three-Legged Lady Road. Other people claim to see a man walking around in a raincoat, but this was only a few years after I Know What You Did Last Summer came out, so you don't have to be all that clever to think that one up. People claim that they would drive by in one direction, and then when they came back, their name would be written on a graffiti wall. If that did happen, I'm pretty sure that would be somebody's friends playing a prank on them. And this isn't particularly paranormal either, but one night we were driving, just the two of us. I was in the passenger seat, and 3/4 of the way down the road, before it turned back into a paved road, we came across this Rottweiler that I promise you was as tall as my friend's car. It just trotted into the middle of the road. It turned its head and looked at us, and it stared at us for what felt like 5 minutes, so I'm sure it was at least 30 seconds or so. And then, of course, we're sitting in the dust that we'd been kicking up from the dirt road, watching this Rottweiler just stare at us in the headlights. And finally, he just walked on, and we went by. So if you want to be snarky about it, I guess we saw a dog. But hopefully I've described the situation in a way that lets you know it was actually a pretty creepy thing to happen. Thank you for taking the time to read this, and hopefully it'll make the show. Well, there you go. Yes, it did make the show. I enjoyed reading it. Thank you for that submission. I've actually been on that road many, many times myself. I've never seen that, but I have seen the strange flying creature, which I'm pretty sure is just a giant crane. And I actually went and explored that church not long after it got knocked down, and it took some of the mystique out of the legends when that particular church had a sign that said built in 1980. So that took a little bit of the drama out of that it wasn't like some old church where the legend would have had time to build up around it. So I don't think there's really a whole lot to the whole three-legged lady road thing. Just a fun local legend, but it's pretty creepy to be out there, and as that story shows, sometimes you can run into some weird stuff. So if you have any creepy experiences or paranormal events or local legends that you would like for us to talk about on this show, you can email Leo Pigwater at leoparanormal. Okay, that was the cat again. Sorry, guys. I'm a little on edge after the whole expedition thing. I'm really sorry. I've got to stop letting the cat in here while I'm working. I don't even know what I was talking about. Email Leo at leoparanormal@aol.com. And if you have anything to say to me, you can contact me and get some feedback on the show at audiovarietyShow@outlook.com. Looking forward to hearing from you. Keeping things moving, the song of the week is Purpose for Pain by Scott Stepp. Scott Stepp is the lead singer for Creed and most recently for Art of Anarchy, and has several solo albums. Apparently he's got a new one coming out, and this is the single from it, Purpose for Pain. A friend of mine showed this to me, and I replied to him that this sounds like everything good about the year 2002, which makes sense because on the Octane station, many of the new hard rock bands sound like everything bad about 2002. That's Purpose for Pain by Scott Stepp, Song of the Week. That brings us once again to halftime. I want to thank the Southeast Paranormal Tracking and Investigation Company, and specifically Leo Pigwater, for taking me out on an expedition into the woods near my home this week. Got myself creeped out, saw some animals. It was a good time. We'll see what those guys have in store for us in the future. If you would like to tell them about a paranormal experience or a local legend, you can contact Leo at leoparanormal@aol.com, leoparanormal@aol.com. While I'm giving out email addresses, if you want to talk to me about something, you can reach me at audiovarietyShow@outlook.com.
Irradiated Koala Llama is an AVS Media production. Last time on Irradiated Koala Llama, government scientist Alexander Markham and world-renowned animal expert Cassandra Pierce set out to investigate a 50-foot-tall radioactive koala llama on Alcatraz Island.
You've got to be kidding. Sandy, are you seeing this?
I've never seen anything like it.
What is it doing?
Markham! Is that you in that chopper? The giant irradiated koala llama is trying to eat the tourists.
What can we do? We can't just shell Alcatraz with tourists on it.
Can too. I've seen The Rock.
What's he got to do with this?
Not the wrestler, the movie.
What? No, I mean the actor.
Right? He was a wrestler first.
Well, is he here or something?
No, the Admiral was talking about a movie.
With The Rock in it?
No, wait. Admiral, Did you just imply that your tactics and battlefield ethics come from Nicolas Cage films?
No! Maybe. That is unfortunate.
Rampage. The Rock was in Rampage with the giant monsters. That's what we're talking about.
Not even close, Markham. That was Dwayne Johnson.
Who?
Markham! There's a minigun on the helo! Dr. Pierce! Maybe you can take a few shots at the giant irradiated koala llama and distract it!
Me? Of the 2 passengers on this thing, I'm not the trained government agent.
Now, Dr. Pierce, don't let anyone man-force any ideas that you are less capable than a man!
What? No. I'm way better off than this guy, but he's the one who deals with anomalous affairs for a living.
I can teach you to use the gun.
No! No mansplaining!
I'm just gonna shoot the monster, okay?
I think that's best. You got its attention.
Now what?
Aim for the head. Hope for the best. Maybe you can hurt it.
How will Sandy overcome the sexist ways and toxic masculinity of Dr. Markham? Find out next time on Irradiated Koala Llama! Going back and listening to the first part of the original story, Sal, I realized I was talking about a door when Sal gets to the cabin. And this door has a latch, a bolt, basically, and also a twisty latch, a lock on the inside. And I realized, listening back to that it doesn't come across very clearly. So I just wanted to clear that up, that when he runs in, he slams the bolt, and then a few minutes later he realizes there's also a latch, so he flips it, and I just did not write that in very well, but since it already got published on the airways here, I just thought I would correct that instead of ignoring it. So tonight we're going to do part 2 of an original story called Sal, about a guy who was out looking for his girlfriend's missing son and got attacked by something out in the woods and stumbled upon this cabin that he didn't know was there. And while he was in there, the things that attacked him broke in and began speaking. And so that's where the story is going to pick up right here. Sal, the creature said in a deep, smooth voice. Inside the bathroom, Sal felt the urge to scream. Sal can't come to the phone right now, the creature said slowly. I'd be happy to take a message. There was a long silence on the other end. Then, why are you doing this? This doesn't make any sense. I want to talk to Whitemane, Mr. Carvey ordered. The creature laughed with genuine good humor. It was a deep, unnerving, animalistic sound. The fool you call Whitemane is dead, and the snows have come. It is time to hunt. The ogre crushed the phone easily in the palm of his hand and tossed it aside like he had the rifle. Then he lowered his head and leaned his thick shoulder against the door. Sal, he said quietly. Sal couldn't have responded if he wanted to. Sal, you're gonna die, the monster said. So you can either put your gun on the floor and open the door slowly, in which case we'll break your neck quickly, or you can make us come in after you. If we have to come in there, you will not have a bone or an organ intact by the time your spirit departs. So what do you think, Sal? The two creatures stood in the perfect silence of the evening for a long moment. Then the answer came. A gunshot rang out with deafening force, and the wooden door splintered as the bullet cut through and drove itself into the monster's neck. The wounded ogre roared viciously and stepped away from the door. He covered the bleeding wound in his neck with a large hand and shouted to his companion in a gruff, guttural language that Sal Moricelli never wanted to hear again. The bigger ogre approached the door, grabbed the tiny knob, and yanked the whole apparatus free of its hinges. Inside the tiny bathroom, Sal had very little to work with. He heard the roar. He heard the second creature approach. He felt it in his soul as the door tore loose. He was terrified, but in spite of the fear, or maybe because of it, He could see every detail before him in the dim light coming through the tiny window. He raised his revolver calmly, aimed at the creature's face as it ducked beneath the doorway, and squeezed the trigger. The gun kicked. He only saw the monster in front of him, falling backward, slinking toward the ground in a way that could only mean death, or at least an instant lack of consciousness. The ogre hit the floor with a thunderous bang, and Sal was already running, leaping over the body, hoping even as he set his sights on the ammo bag that the creature wasn't about to reach up and snap his legs off. He made it over the fallen monster without incident, scooped up his bag, and remembered an instant before the strap caught that it was attached by a little metal ringlet. Adrenaline and determination were his friends in that moment. He turned on the remaining creature, the one bleeding in the corner, and emptied his revolver into it. The monster howled in pain and stumbled to its knees. Sal didn't waste any time. He unhooked the carabiner smoothly and threw his bag over his shoulder. He ran for the open, destroyed window and leapt through it, landing awkwardly in the snow. He stumbled forward, found his footing, and began to run. He didn't see the third creature sitting on the roof of the cabin, but he heard it when it hit the ground and started running after him. Sal didn't really know where he was going, but he thought he might actually be running further away from the highway and from Jenny's house. That didn't slow him down. He'd seen the monsters move, and he didn't think he had much of a chance anyway. But he would be completely out of luck if he slowed down at all. He didn't even see the drop-off. At the bottom of the ditch, there were no pines to block the snow. It had collected unchecked, and when Sal hit the ground, he was buried beneath the wet powder. He tried to recover his wind, but all he could do was squirm and gasp. The snow closed in on him, but then the distinct thump of a massive body landing in the snow got his attention. Still struggling to breathe, both because he was only using an air pocket and due to the awkward landing, Sal forced himself to be as still as possible. 10 yards away, shin deep in the snow, the ogre who had waited on the roof scanned the little ravine and the frozen stream it held. The wounded ogre stopped at the top of the drop-off and slumped against a tree. He grunted something in that beastly language, and the other ogre looked up at him and answered. His voice was slightly higher pitched, and he certainly spoke more quickly. The wounded ogre, the obvious leader, growled something back down the steep slope, and his companion immediately reached over his head, grabbed the top of the ridge, and pulled himself back up with ease. Sal was left with silence, but he didn't dare move. It could be a trick to make him reveal himself. They could be legitimately searching somewhere else, but they might notice if he started stumbling around in the snow. So he lay there, unable to feel his face and hands, wondering how long he could stay there before frostbite set in. But it wasn't the cold that got him moving. It was the realization of why the monsters had moved on without looking for him. He sat up quickly, dug through the snow until he found both his gun and the bag of ammunition, and began the cold journey back to Jenny's house. Minutes later, standing on the shoulder of the highway, Sal felt the vague nervousness he'd been experiencing grow into excited fear. Even the sounds of wildlife had grown quiet as he moved closer to the house. His feet were in agony, and he couldn't feel his hands or his face, but he had a solid grip on the revolver. He was certain he would need it. Sal crossed the highway and began the long trek down the dirt driveway to the little miniature neighborhood where Jenny and her grandparents lived. Her parents' house was also there, though her dad had lost a battle with cancer before Sal had ever known her, and her mom had since remarried and moved to Washougal. They'd taken to renting that house to select tenants, usually people from church, but it had been unoccupied for about 6 months. There were 2 occupied homes in the little farm-like complex. One belonged to Jenny and her 9-year-old son. The thought of Robert brought a lump into Sal's throat, but he choked it down and kept pushing down the cleanly plowed driveway. The other house belonged to Jenny's widowed grandfather, the man he had been speaking to on the phone. There were no lights on at any of the 3 houses occupying the quarter-mile stretch of driveway. Fortunately, Jenny's house was the first one he would reach. The security light came on with blinding force. Sal shielded his eyes briefly with his free hand. He half expected a flutter of motion as something stalking him scurried away, but his imagination went unfulfilled. Instead, the light revealed something much, much worse. The front door was wide open. Sal ran without a thought. He jumped the porch stairs and skidded to a halt at the open door to stare at the blackness inside. His heart dropped to his stomach, but as he looked frantically around for any sign of what had happened, he found the note attached to the inside of the door with a magnet. "Sal," the note began, "we left the door open so you would know something is up. Pop won't tell me much, but he's terrified. We're going to Mom's for the night. Robert is okay. He wasn't taken. He was hiding in a tree. He saw you, but he was too scared of the monsters to show himself. I guess he finally got more scared of staying out there in the dark. He's with us. We're all safe. Get in your truck right now and join us in Washougal. I love you so much. Please be safe." Relief washed over him with each word. For Robert, for Jenny, for himself, his truck was 20 yards away. The keys were in his... Sal shoved his numb, free hand into his left pocket where he kept his keys. Nothing. He tried the other pocket, just in case. More nothing. He suddenly felt very exposed. He turned and jumped down the porch steps, nearly twisting his knee as his battered body protested. He scanned the driveway and the open snow-covered yard. There, under the light of the motion-sensing security lamp, he saw what had come to be familiar footprints. He had been foolish to think they belonged to a man of any size, but he'd been more concerned about Robert than encountering mythical creatures earlier. "Why do you want to kill me?" he demanded loudly. "We're hungry," a voice answered calmly from behind him. Sal whirled around only to find nothing there, but he could still hear labored animal breathing from somewhere nearby. Then it clicked. The house. Sal focused his attention on the open door, but tried not to lose track of his surroundings. Sal could tell it was the creature who had spoken to him at the cabin with that deep voice that wasn't quite human. The creature he unloaded a 357 into. That meant the remaining monster was out there somewhere. He seriously doubted it was also in the dark of the house. "Looks like they put you guys out of commission for a while," Sal argued. "What is this, some weird interspecies feud?" "Feud," the wounded creature laughed. "No one likes ogres, son. The Carveys just take it to an eccentric level." To Sal's left, something moved ever so slightly, just enough to draw his attention to the tractor shed. So there was the other monster. He hoped they hadn't picked up extra reinforcements. "Well," Sal said casually, "I'm not going to shoot what I can't see, so if you want to get my ammo used up, you're going to have to get adventurous." Sal actually heard the buzzing as something large hurtled through the air over his head. It came from the direction of the tractor shed and smashed into the security light high on its pole beside the driveway. Sal sighed as the yard went dark. "Well, that's a start," he admitted. The ogre inside the house roared, but that coldly rational part of Sal that had been in charge most of the evening guided his thoughts toward the shed. He aimed the gun, but didn't fire blindly. As he expected, some kind of shape was moving his way through the darkness. He fired once, then looked back to the front door. Nothing was coming. Even in his terror, he knew it might mean the first ogre was injured too badly to move quickly. He hoped that was true. The healthy creature had veered off to Sal's left, away from the house, but Sal could hear heavy footsteps rolling his way. There was nothing but open yard, followed by highway, followed by pine forest. The black shape of the ogre on the black background was invisible. Sal broke his word and fired twice at the level of his own chest. The muzzle flash blinded him even more. Then, struck by inspiration, he took off for the house. He dropped the ammunition bag. As he cleared the corner of the house, he could hear the ogre gaining ground. He knew he would never outrun it at any distance, so he took advantage of his head start, turned toward the house, and executed the most perfect baseball slide of his entire life. He kicked through the thin aluminum grate and slid smoothly under the house, dragging a pile of snow with him. He lay there stunned that he hadn't smashed into the cinder blocks at the foundation of the house, until a massive hairy arm slammed through the opening, and fingers the size of two of his own nicked the wild mass of his sweaty, messed-up hair. Sal scrambled away in panic and drove his face into an aluminum air duct. He fell prone again, terrified but uninjured. The ogre stuck its large, flat face against the opening and roared. "If I have to tear this house down," it said. The menace was heightened by the dull echo of the space under the house. "I'll do it." "Is that supposed to make me give up and crawl out? Start tearing away, big guy." The ogre's face disappeared, and Sal immediately began crawling toward the opening, but at an angle that would place him beside it. The massive arm reached inside one more time and felt around, but Sal was well out of reach. Then the arm withdrew. A dim square of moonlight shone through the opening. Then that square disappeared. If Sal was wrong, he would die. If he gambled right, it was his only chance to live. Sal rolled to his right until he was in front of the opening. He could barely see the one eye looking in at him, and before the monster could figure out what was happening, Sal unloaded the cylinder into the ogre's face. Just outside, he could hear the creature's pained breathing, which quickly turned into a frantic gurgle. Sal gave it a few moments. The wet breathing slowed, but it never died away. If there hadn't been at least one more of those things out there, he would have just lain there all night despite the cold. Getting out at an upward angle was a lot harder than getting in had been. The rough concrete tore at his frozen hands as he tried to shimmy back into the night. Finally, he had twisted and kicked until he was on his back and 3/4 of the way out of the gap. Something growled right in his ear. Sal's heart jumped hard and his legs began kicking involuntarily. He backed away and rolled over twice before kicking backward again even more. He was several yards away before he realized he was looking at the ogre that had tried to get under the house. It lay on its back, looking at him with a sneer on what remained of its face. The right eye had been destroyed, and apparently a second shot had struck it just above the mouth. It took in a long but shallow breath and exhaled a stream of vapor that bounced off the snowy ground. Sal struggled to find his feet, and he watched the monster for a brief moment. It took a few more breaths, but it didn't come after him. It didn't even move. Satisfied it wasn't going anywhere, Sal moved back to the front of the house, making sure to stay clear of the dying creature's reach. He saw his bag of ammunition in the middle of the yard, half buried in snow. Despite his body's protest, especially his feet, he ran for it. He was closing in, close enough to reach out for it. Then, out of nowhere, a massive shape rushed into view. The wounded ogre, the one that had been speaking to him, grabbed the bag and flung it into the night. The bag ripped, and .357 Magnum shells sprayed everywhere as the fabric disappeared into the darkness. Sal was stunned, but the big creature closed in on him and swiped for his head. Sal ducked low out of pure instinct. He was confident the blow would have literally taken his head off. He was turning to see what was going on, but the creature, whose momentum had taken him a step past Sal, turned faster and got a hand the size of Sal's head around his throat. Given any time at all, he would have crushed Sal, but Sal lashed out with his gun hand blindly, and the weapon's grip struck one of the monster's wounds. The creature dropped him and covered its throbbing abdomen. It dropped down to its knees and slumped over. While the ogre was still howling in pain, Sal closed the small gap between them. And began pounding the creature's wounded neck. The monster fell over onto the snowy ground. Sal followed him to the ground, still beating on his neck, until fresh blood squirted all over his hands and shirt. The open wound began to steam in the frigid night air. Sal rolled away, and the ogre flailed his arms helplessly, but he couldn't muster enough force to do anything. Sal shrugged off the blows and separated himself from the monster. He took a step back and looked the thing over. The ogre just lay there on its side, coughing, breathing, in animalistic huffs. "It looks," the creature began, but he had to cough. "It looks like you killed me at the cabin," he choked out. Sal reached down into the snow and picked up one of the fallen cartridges. "It looks that way," he agreed as he opened the cylinder and loaded the Magnum. The ogre turned his head just enough to look him in the eye. It didn't faze Sal a bit. He closed the cylinder, aimed carefully at the monster's head, and squeezed the trigger one last time. Alright, that'll do it again for the audio variety show. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the stories. I hope you enjoyed the jokes. Hope you enjoyed Irradiated Koala Llama. I want to say a big thank you once again to the Southeast Paranormal Tracking and Investigation Company for taking me out this week. For taking me out this weekend, and like I say, getting me a little creeped out. There is something there this time. Getting me a little creeped out, but showing me a good time. No way.